Shadowlands killed Warcraft, so Blizzard just retconned it. That's right, boys. Your favorite jailer of all nipples, Zovaal, the man himself, the ultimate planner, is being retconned, evidently by Blizzard themselves. Let's see what Belial has to say about how Blizzard is handling some of the worst lore ever added to the game. By the way, Shadowlands lore, some of it wasn't bad. I think it was Zovaal and the way it was told, it was janky as shit. But anyway, let's check out what's going on here.
Sponsored by Squarespace. Shadowlands happened. I'm sorry to remind you it did, but it did. And for many
What's
of us,
Shadowlands? Yeah.
it broke Warcraft's lore. And we've talked about its failures to death. There's no denying that Shadowlands happened, that it's canon, but Blizzard are actually trying to fix that. But how do you deal with...
Well, hopefully they can. I will say one mistake that Shadowlands made that we've seen in movies recently, we've seen in a lot of franchises, is they try to build up a new character. Whether it's a new good guy or a new bad guy, they try to do it by destroying a fan favorite character, right? They basically tell you can't like this guy anymore because now this guy's here and you're going to like him. So what did Blizzard do? They had the Lich King lore. Obviously, Arthas, his storyline, his ascension as the Lich King and then eventual fall is one of the greatest stories, if not the greatest story in all of World of Warcraft. So when Blizzard were writing up this lore here, they wanted to create a new villain. They created Zovaal, and they were like, how do we make him great? Well, we're going to make him great by shitting all over people's favorite lore, so that way people won't be able to like that anymore, and they'll have to like Zovaal. And like I said, it's happened. We've seen it in Star Wars. You've seen it in Marvel, where a new hero gets introduced, or a new good guy. So what do? We got to destroy Luke Skywalker to build up Rey. We got to destroy all the old Marvel characters to build up these new Marvel characters. It's a shit way of writing. And it never goes over well, and yet it's like this trope that people keep doing for some reason. It's lazy writing. That's what it is. That we got to piggyback off of old lore and destroy it essentially. That way you can't like it anymore. It becomes unlikable, and maybe they'll like what we're writing now. And that's what Shadowlands did a lot of.
The problem like Shadowlands, do you just ignore it? Do you quietly forget about it? Well, that's one option.
Warm on Jesus.
But here's another approach: to take the bits that did work and then to run with it. And also to, in a book, retcon some of the most disastrous things. And that
I'll tell you what did work. Castle Nathria, all that stuff, that was great, right? That was great stuff. The Dreadlords and all their lore that came out in chat, even though they kind of like abandoned. What's going on with the Dreadlords right now? We don't even know. But all of that stuff was really good lore. The rest of it, not so much. Nothing else really good came out of it besides that.
That's what we're seeing in the game.
After Castle Nathria was downhill.
Patch 11.2 has brought back some of the best. It's quietly forgotten the worst. And when we picked up Chronicle Volume 4 and did a little bit of reading, we've even seen a few things be retconned. But going in-game, we see Venari is back. She's seamlessly picked up from
and Sire Denathrius is going to come back at some point, too. He's probably the best character to come out of Shadowlands, no doubt.
She left
he was
off.
The real villain,
it's
maybe.
Pretty slick. The brokers have been given an origin that disconnects them from the Shadowlands and reconnects them to the actual game world that we do care about. And then some of the deeper mysteries, like Anima, Devourers, and the first ones, well, they have been reintroduced in a way that does not break the lore, because some of those things are no longer what we thought they were during Shadowlands, and I mean that in a good way. So
he's right. I didn't even think about the reintroduction of the brokers and the way they've done it. They've tied it back down to Azerothian lore. It's not of Azeroth, right? They're of the same planet that the Ethereals are from, Koresh and all that stuff. But what's good about it is it's tied down to lore that we know. It's no longer this otherworldly outer space death realm weird shit anymore, which was a good move on their part.
The question today is simple. Are Blizzard saving the Shadowlands lore? Or should I say, saving World of Warcraft from the Shadowlands lore? Whenever people send me things, first impressions...
The Primus, I think, was the real bad guy. A lot of us do, and I agree. There was some hidden Primus lore. I'm still wondering what was going on with that. I played Maldraxxus at the time, so I know a lot of this Primus stuff, and it was weird. It was weird. He's the rune carver. He's got some kind of relationship with the Titans. Maybe we'll explore that in the Last Titan, and they'll actually delve into that. Or we've done way too much thinking on our own, and the lore just doesn't actually go that deep, and it's actually just shit written stuff. that could also be it.
Count. And that's where today's sponsor, Squarespace, can let you make that strong first impression so you actually get through to the people you want to get through to. And today, they're easier, faster, and less fictitious than anyone else, and that's all because of the new way that you build a site. And I'll walk you through it. So first, Blueprint guides you through making your own template, and this really is amazing.
Wow.
It helps you select what
Look at this,
you
make a
want,
site.
what fonts are best, what color palette to use, and by them, of course, doing the hard work of curating all of those and making it all just work, they keep you right. And that also extends to them adding new features. You can sell digital and physical products, there's courses, there's bookings for physical and digital, and there's even native video. Yes, native, not just an embed. Which basically just means it looks and feels way better and way more pro. Now, it's all designed to work together, and rather than be a bunch of cobbled together features with inconsistent design, it's actually seamless and professional.
Oh, so look at that.
Customers
drag and drop, oh my God.
Great first impression, which is what you want. And whenever they convert, well, you have seamless buying with Squarespace payments. They really are the complete package.
Why hasn't Squarespace sponsored me yet?
Following my link, squarespace.com/BellularGaming, you get to build your site for free. And then when
use
you're
code
ready to send it
BellularGaming.
live,
There you go.
my code BellularGaming gets you 10% off your first purchase of a site or domain. We just watched Venari rock up to Soulscribe. She had the essence of Koresh in her hand, a literal part of her planet's world soul. And it looked quite familiar. It looked like something that we would see in Zereth Mortis. Sorry to trigger you, just maybe a bit more purple. But that got me thinking. Venari's back. Devourers are in play again alongside the Brokers. But how far are they going to take it? Are they still saying that world souls are connected to the first ones, whatever the first ones may be? Of course, the first ones being that piece of Shadowlands lore so controversial that it made us question everything we thought we knew about the setting. In a bad way. And if you aren't sure what a Shadowlands era first one was, well, we never met them, but basically, they were kind of like the Pantheon god people that came before all the other god people that we've known. To people, it was
the Pantheon within the Pantheon. That's right, the Pantheon of Pantheons. That's what it kind of was. They were really, the first ones were kind of what the Titans were in original, like, vanilla lore. Like, back when you started playing this game and people would talk about the Titans in passing, it was always like, they're the creators, they're the gods of WoW. Like, they created everything. They are the ultimate power. They are the end-all, be-all. We have them to thank for our very existence. And then the old gods can't curse the flesh. Okay, fine. So there's a conflict between these two factions. At the end of the day, though, we delved even further into this and we realized, oh no, they're just powerful beings, but they're not the end. So then Blizzard introduced a new end, which was these first ones. And it wasn't good. It wasn't well delivered. It wasn't well received. It just, it's something, honestly, in writing that you probably shouldn't do. Literally talking about the end time creator, like the ultimate, because then you're going to have to find a new ultimate at the end of that one. It's just, it's a weird direction to go, and probably they should have never done it in the first place.
Wasn't that satisfying? Now, you could say it's a little bit like, say, you got
it's good to have mystery in your lore. It's good to have these all-powerful beings that you just don't see, that you just, you hear stories about.
First generation of Greek deities, and then the second generation of Greek deities, but it just didn't work in World of Warcraft. Then I went a little bit deep, and that's when I realized something. The first ones have been quietly retconned, yes, and the Jailer's final warning has been gutted. And the upshot of this is so much of the overcomplicated cosmic stuff has been brought down to ground, where it's finally understandable. And that's when I realized that they are basically saving what they can from the Shadowlands in a way that's positive for the health of the game. But let's set the scene. For anyone who may not know why Shadowlands is so very controversial, I'll put a fine point on it. Better still, I'll let Blizzard do it for me. Check out this panel from GDC 2023. First problem, the Afterlife setting wasn't accessible. Second problem, the new antagonist wasn't developed. That new antagonist was the Jailer. Finally, well-known story heroes were diminished. Looking at you, Arthas Garrett.
Oh, that's what I said at the start of this video. Yeah, you destroyed the great lore and you built up new shitty lore, basically. I'll be honest, people don't pay attention to the lore. They don't, but they do. There's a lot of people, you're right, who don't pay attention to the lore, but it does set an overall vibe of the expansion. Whether you really pay attention to it and love it, or you just kind of take it in whatever bite-sized pieces Blizzard gives it to you, it does affect your overall opinion of the expansion. It does. Mostly, obviously, you're going to be affected by how good was the raid, how good were the mechanics, how good was the Mythic Plus season. Those things matter a lot. But if the overall story feels like you're falling flat. Sometimes it feels like you're playing for nothing. Like, what's the point of this again? The War Within failed at that too. And that's because they kind of pivoted at the end. So there's a lot of unfinished stories in the War Within. But I think a good expansion with good raids, good mechanics, good stuff going on, and good lore, that's the chef's kiss of expansions. That's when an expansion feels really good. A la Legion or Wrath of the Lich King, stuff like that.
Roshan Azul, Kel'Thuzad, and many more. So, as of 2023, we see that Blizzard are aware. But like I said, they obviously can't just ignore it, especially when things happened to characters, like say Anduin, that simply cannot be undone. Let's see how they've actually pulled this off. We've only been back to the Shadowlands a few times since that horrible expansion ended. In the Blood Elf Heritage chain, we went to Maldraxxus and Bastion. Why? Well, it was to find ways of making sure that Scourge souls stayed dead. And it's really all light touch stuff. We kind of go to the Shadowlands, but not really that much, and the bad bits of the Shadowlands aren't really dealt with. But then, of course, Anduin came back, and we knew it was coming. But here's the problem. He was still fundamentally, totally traumatized by a Shadowlands arc. It's hard to ignore that, and for a character like him, it's kind of right to be traumatized by that. Seriously.
This is what somebody looks like who tries to be a Death Knight, but they just don't have the skills. That's what it is. So, like, look at me, right? I don't look like Anduin. I play Death Knight 24/7, but I look great. It's because I got the skills to match up, to be able to handle it, both mentally and physically. Anduin, not so much, right? This is your average mere mortal man trying to play Death Knight. This is what they end up looking like. So don't do it, guys. If you're not ready for it, don't do it. This class takes skill. It does.
It was pretty damn horrible. The Calling short story then comes in and does a great job of showing his journey toward healing those wounds. Then we joined him in Khazad-dûr, where Faerun reintroduced him to the light. It's obviously been a while since then. At last we heard he was well on his way to rehabilitation. That will mean we will have a post-Shadowlands fixed up Anduin, but it's not enough to rehab Anduin.
Did anybody think in the cinematic that was Anduin's hand coming out from the light and touching the shoulder? Because I did. And I kind of I was a little bit excited for it. I kind of wanted it to be him, but then, let's have Anduin have his cool heroic moment. No, he didn't get it. It wasn't him. I don't know what Anduin's doing. I tried in my head to make it cool for him. He wasn't there. He wasn't there. He chickened out.
But it also had to rehab the overall warcraft setting. And that brings
his
us
dad
to
would have
the
been
world
there.
of Koresh, the homeworld of the Ethereals, introduced into the game with the Burning Crusade, but it's also now where the brokers have came from. Now, we long speculated that the brokers and Ethereals shared a connection. It was quite obvious visually. They both had cartels, they were traders, kind of looked similar. Now we know that they were another group.
Yes, the glove does look like his glove. I did look at it already. That's why I thought it was him, but I don't think Blizzard's going to put Anduin in the cinematic and not show his face and not reveal that it's actually him, because that would have been a hyped moment. He's not there. He's clearly not there, or Blizzard would have shown it.
Of Koreshi who escaped their planet's destruction. Essentially, some fled into the Twisting Nether, they would be the Ethereals we met in TBC, others crafted containment suits and fled into the Shadowlands. And that's why Tazavesh was in between the realms of the Shadowlands.
Yeah, this makes more sense now.
Refugees hiding out in the cracks of reality.
Yeah.
Tazavesh itself, well, it's been revealed as one of the city-states that existed on Koresh.
Yeah. The new lore that came out in this patch has done a really good job of kind of, like I said, grounding the Shadowlands lore, which was completely on... That shit was just floating around, God knows what, just like that stupid Ouroboros dildo city in the sky. This has done a really good job at bringing down the brokers, Tazavesh, and everything, and grounding it in legitimate Warcraft lore.
It was ruled by this guy, Bilal, a name that may be familiar to the mages and priests listening because he was in your artifact quests back in Legion. Now, you can see how they're weaving the bits of Shadowlands that worked into the long-established lore, and doing that with characters we're familiar with. It's a satisfying reintroduction for the brokers, but the pinnacle of it is, of course, the one character that we can all agree rocked during Shadowlands, and that is Venari.
Yep. Venari was cool.
The Maw was supposed to be the most brutal place in reality, one inspired by Dark Souls, and heading there Hiding in a cave, we found Venari. We traded her mountains of Stygia, and in return, she taught us her rules of survival. She seemed a bit paranoid, a bit unhinged. Then, much later, in Zereth Mortis, she found a way to escape the Shadowlands, and she even faked her own death. Strange enough end to a quirky character.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
What was she actually doing there? Well, we can now look at the results. She returned to Koresh, and she used the massive wealth that she had gathered, partially via us, to set up the ecodomes. The ultimate one being Aldani. And at the end of that process, well, she brought her world back to life. And when that happens, she explains that the Maw was the closest thing to Koresh that she could find in the...
I don't remember seeing... Is this when you do some of the Ecodome quests? Because I completely haven't done any of that. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I want to gather up pets and do all this shit right now. But I'm assuming that's where this cutscene's from, is like if you do the Ecodome stuff. And the Ecodomes themselves are cool. It's cool stuff that from, if you play BC, you remember them. So these are a cool little touch. Like I said, the lore from this patch has been really good.
Universe, and if she could understand it, she could save her world. I don't really
She retired
know what
and made
she
a garden.
Means, but whatever, it basically works. I'm willing to let that slide. The Shadowlands didn't explain Venari's motivations, though. She was just there as a mystery. In fact, the brokers were just these hyper-mysterious dudes who liked to trade. We knew they gathered knowledge, wealth, and technology, but we did not know why. Seems like a fundamental flaw of that expansion storytelling. But now it's clear
Blue?
They were working towards one day going home, back to Koresh. And with how Blizzard have handled it, it's natural, it's smooth, they haven't needed to be smashed back into the lore. It feels natural. Now, Venari is still scheming and sarcastic. She still plays her cards close to her chest. But we now know she was trying to save what was left of Koresh. So it's an evolution of the Shadowlands lore that fits. As she references the past, she calls us Mawwalker, savior of Koresh, after we downed Demencius, so she remembers.
God,
we
Mawwalker.
remember, and you know what? It doesn't suck. A lot of other bits of Shadowlands did, but these bits basically didn't. Narratively anyway, I don't think anyone really enjoyed the Maw. But she's not the only thing back from the Shadowlands. We also see the Devourers, and they are now at the bottom of the food chain.
By the way, the Devourers, you can get a Devourer mount for the first time this week. It takes you 5 weeks to get it, but this week is the first week that you can actually get it. Kind of fits the story.
It's no coincidence that we fight Demencius the All-Devouring in a patch where the Devourers from Shadowlands show up. Something important is happening here. Check out this text on this patch 11.2 mount. When one cosmically invasive threat meets another, sometimes the smaller ends up on the menu of the larger, which really does put the Devourers in their place. Because once upon a time, they were the first hints at a massive cosmic conflict, one that has been quietly retconned out of the lore, and that is what is to come. Something that basically turned into a bit of a meme in the community.
Yeah.
Because as the jailer died...
The jailer's final moment. He was on his knees and his final word was come. Never forget it.
That is what he warned us about. A cosmos divided cannot stand against what is to come. That was the beginning of an arc under the game's then creative director that it seems will never see the light of day. And that was an arc that basically was zooming out in the cosmos. Of course,
he didn't mention that Venari sends us into Maldraxxus in 11.2. I thought he did in the very early parts of the video. He talked to was he talking about original Maldraxxus and us trying to keep the scourge in the afterlife? Maybe that's what he was talking about. Yeah, interesting point.
Doing that, it meant that it was kind of saying that the things that we had cared about, that we actually liked about the Warcraft setting, were no longer nearly as important in the Warcraft setting, meaning that it just diluted the Warcraft setting.
Sure.
A lot of work has actually been done in the background, because now Blizzard are landing the most controversial aspects of the Shadowlands lore. They're fixing it. Remember this guy, Fareem? He was mad. He's the one who kept telling us that we were idiots for not understanding his First One's lore. Well, turns out he was the idiot the entire time, because that stuff has just been dropped.
Good.
In Chronicle Volume 4, we get some key insights. Remember, Chronicle Volume 4 came out last year, so firmly not in that sordid era of Warcraft writing. One of the things in Chronicle 4 that is changed, or recontextualized, is the jailer's warning. He said we wouldn't be able to fend off what is to come, but he never really told us what he thought was to come. And now, as it turns out, he did not know what was to come. It's quite interesting. The Chronicle explains something here. While Zovaal was the arbiter of the Shadowlands, so before he got trapped in the Maw and was a big bad guy, he glimpsed into countless mortal souls, and he kind of just felt that something bad was coming. No name, no definition, just bad vibes. So yeah, bad vibes were to come. Now, he tried to tell the other Eternal Ones about all these bad vibes, but they basically said, it's probably all part of the First One's plan. Don't worry about it. Zovaal then, kicked off all of his jailer stuff. He had a big old civil war in the afterlife.
It'd be really funny if they had Zovaal with like hair before he found out all this bad shit was going down, and he lost his hair gradually, because we all know stress can cause hair loss. Yeah.
And then he
Don't
was
ask me
trapped
how
in
I
law
know.
until we turned up. Now, it makes his motivations as a villain worse, but it does stop the setting from being held back by some random cosmic threat, which is good. But you just heard me say the First Ones, and that's the big thing. The First Ones. The Titans of the Titans, the guys who built the universe. I mean, even looking at stuff that was First Ones architecture, it clearly appeared to be in the same lineage as that of the Titans. Well, here's where Chronicle does a slight change that's big. Instead of the First Ones being the gods of the gods, now, canonically, the First Ones are just a myth. They are just a myth that people in the Shadowlands believe. Something that they think is true.
They're not even real.
May not necessarily be true. And that pokes holes in the foundations of the Shadowlands lore. And it does so in a way that means we can just kind of forget that they existed. We can chalk it up to a weird myth that people in the afterlife believe about how stuff works.
And as it should be. Leave it a myth, right? Leave some things mysterious. You don't have to, just like in real life, we don't know, we don't have an answer to every single thing, right? It's okay if in the game there are some things just left mysterious. That's cool. It leads to adventure, leads to discovery. Will we ever discover it? No, we don't have to. Let's just keep doing the things we're doing, fighting the next big threat and all that stuff, and leave some end game mystery still out there, right? And that's fine. I think that was a good retcon on their part.
Oh, you could probably rationalize this. You could maybe say,
that's not a retcon. How is it not a retcon? It is. They were literally talking about the First Ones as if they're like these established beings that they've seen before, and now they've changed it to say, well, they never actually saw them. This was all kind of just like their way of explaining the origin of life, but they've never actually seen a First One. Nobody knows if they're real or not.
Well, perhaps it is the Titans who actually went and did something in the Shadowlands and then went off and did something else. And to the beings of the Shadowlands...
I don't know if that stands true. You said Chronicle is a biased view. That was the case for I think it was Chronicle 3, that was the case for. Chronicle 4 has a different take on who's writing the book and how realistic everything is. They're not all... Yes, there's biases built into them, and that one was written by the Titans and all this stuff. But you also have to understand not every Chronicle is the same. They're written from different points of view, yes, but still there are some factual things to be taken from them. Maybe the first ones are actually the Titans. Could be. Odin may as well be the one who wrote this. Look, yes, Chronicle 3, I think, is the one you're referring to, not 4. 4 is a bit different. So I have to look more into it and figure out whose point of view 4 is written from, but it's a bit different.
Those Titans are called the First Ones, and they never understood the difference, or something like that. Could be the case. But basically, all of that huge, suffocating lore has been cut, and that leaves the future wide open. Okay, so we got retcons, recontextualizations, and reintroductions. It's clear that Blizzard are doing some heavy goddamn lifting to rehabilitate the Shadowlands, but that's actually not the end. Looking to the future, there's a big opportunity to do the same thing for other characters. Sargeras is back in The Last Titan. Almost certainly, right? But here's the thing with Sargeras. It was almost certainly a character from the Shadowlands who engineered Sargeras' downfall in the first place. That character is Sire Denathrius, the sire of the Dreadlords. The Dreadlords being the group who basically psyop Sargeras into turning into, well, Sargeras, the bad guy that we know. Of course, Sire Denathrius escaped justice in the end, and he has been sulking about with his Nathrezim ever since. So, if we're going to see a change in Sargeras, we'll have to get to the bottom of why he
This is
went
what I
over
want to
the
see.
edge. And
Best thing to come out of Shadowlands. I need more contextualization about the Dreadlords. What is going on with them? They've infiltrated the light, too. We got the light and the void. They're on both sides. What's happening with the Dreadlords? Maybe we'll get more of them later on.
that would be a perfect time to
Maybe a
reintroduce
post-Titan
Denathrius and make him face some consequences. Nothing here is set in stone, but it does illustrate how we can't just ignore the Shadowlands lore, because unfortunately, it did actually happen, and this isn't like in, say, comic books where we can just go and do a full reboot. Hard to do that in a big live game. So instead, Blizzard have got surgical. They're willing to do the work to reintroduce the bits that were good and to fix the stuff that essentially broke the lore. And that means we'll never see a return of its biggest themes, or perhaps its mysteries. Don't expect the Primus to pop out in The Last Titan to slap some sense into Aman'Thul. No, that won't happen. But do expect to see little bits from the Shadowlands, but done in a way that makes sense. So, with that said, tell me what you think down below. I'm sure that this is something we'll be debating for quite a long time indeed. And while a lot of this stuff has been fixed up pretty quickly, yeah, Koresh has been a little bit of a hard left turn, especially for some of the people who expected the War Within to more fully deal with Beledar, to fully go within the planet and deal with the World Soul. But of course now it's clear that that is something set up for the World Soul saga instead, which probably...
I got the info on Chronicle 4 right here.
And if this has whetted your appetite, well, check out this breakdown of Koresh's deepest lore next. I think you'll get a big kick out of it, and it'll help you understand and enjoy a lot of 11.2 more.
Nice video. Nice video from Bellular. And I'm going to explain to you why Chronicle 4 is different. I got it right here. I knew I was right. So, overall, if we look at Chronicles 1 through 3, you are right. It was told from a Titan perspective, right? That was a Titan perspective. Chronicle 4 was different. It says right here, Chronicle 4 is not written from a Titan perspective. World of Warcraft Chronicle 4 has returned to a more traditional presentation of lore, brought from a neutral, ominous narrator point of view. Essentially, it is supposed to be the voice of the universe, giving perspective to previous lore, clarifying timelines, motivations, and cosmic structures across expansions. Chronicles 1 through 3 were framed through the lens of the Titans and their cosmic understanding of order. Volume 4 shifts away from that approach, according to recent lore discussions and developer commentary. So there you go. Chronicle 4 is a telling of the things, not from the Titan perspective, but more from like a overall lore, I don't know, all-knowing lore genius. That's how it's being presented to us, which is why Chronicle 4 gives us a more of a grounding of all the lore and less of a biased perspective like the previous Chronicles did. Nice video here from Bellular, nice explanation of how some of this stuff has changed.